Official visit season is a numbers game, and the number is 19.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day, whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download your podcast. This show is always free, and this show always appreciates your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms will apply. I wonder what the vacancy limit is for a USC official visit weekend. Their bashes, which takes place this weekend coming up. USC has 19, I'll call them studs, getting ready to party like it's 1999 this weekend. Prince knew how to do it. The Trojans right now, they have the third ranked class nationally. Okay, they're trailing Ohio State number 1, LSU number 2. And there are quite a few prospects that are visiting this weekend that USC has a really, really, really good shot at landing. First, let me remind everyone who's visiting this weekend, June 7th through the 9th, official visitor weekend. And there are some changes to the list. So if you're an everyday listener, hey, pay attention. For those of you who are catching the show for the first time in a while, or for the very first time, welcome aboard. But here's your list for this weekend. You have, here are the changes to the list, I should say. Wide receiver, Javon Boggs. Safety, Bryce Fitzgerald. Cornerback, LaRue Zamorona, local kid. Safety, Laganza Hayward. Safety, Jaden Hudson. Linebacker, Christian Jones. He's probably not going to reschedule. Defensive lineman Kevin Otis is not going to reschedule. He's all Mississippi State. So USC doesn't want to waste any time there. And defensive lineman Xavier Ukponu. They were scheduled to visit this weekend, but are not. So some of them are going to be rescheduling. The ones that I mentioned specifically that probably won't or will not, I wanted to get those guys out of the way. However, those guys, it's not like there's going to be empty space. They're being replaced by a running back commitment, Riley Wormley, wide receiver commitment, Romero Eisen, defensive lineman Hayden Lowe. He actually wasn't scheduled to come this weekend. He recommitted to this official visitor weekend. And then you also have a defensive lineman, Randy Adirika, Adirika, excuse me. So at first, there were 21 set to visit. Now we're down to 19. So here are the 19 with those guys that I just mentioned. You got Juju Lewis. He is the headliner, of course. You've got Dorian Brew. I mentioned him on a previous episode this week. Linebacker, Riley Pettyjohn. Edge rusher, Justin Hill. Wide receiver, Andrew Marsh. Wide receiver, Dalen McCutcheon. Wide receiver, Corey Sims. Linebackers, Noah McHale. Christian Gass from the state of Georgia. You got defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman, Malik Autry. By the way, just going to put this out there. One of my listeners said he's going to flip to USC. Okay, so I've got the receipt. I'll make sure you get credit for it if it happens. Another linebacker, Max Granville, state of Texas. Offensive tackle, Nick Brooks. You've got defensive lineman, new addition, Floyd Boucard from Miami, and offensive line commit, Willie Wasker. So this will be the next group of visitors that I just went over that we're going to be looking to get feedback from. Okay. So you just had this previous official visitor weekend. You had 11 guys, I think it was. Not a lot of hoopla coming out of it. There's some positive stuff coming, but no commitments. And again, I love the fact that Hayden Lowe, who was going to come later in the recruiting cycle, is making it for this weekend. Really important. And I say that because I think he's a candidate who could possibly get wowed and even make a commitment when everything's all said and done. Last year in June, USC went ham, right? Commitments were coming in hand over fist. It was like, whoa, wow, it's going to be a great recruiting cycle. Many of those guys, though, they weren't committed by the time the season played itself out. They saw the defense and were like, yeah, no thanks, we're out of here. Now, a few of these guys that are coming to visit, they have other visits that they're going to go to after they come to LA for USC. So USC fans, some of you are going to stress out a little bit while Oregon and others get their financial hooks into these guys. For instance, Noah McHale, the linebacker, local product from Laverne, California. He's been to USC 100 million times. Slight exaggeration. 99 million times. But he's going to Oregon. Well, he's going to be visiting Oregon. USC, Oregon, and Texas A&M are his 3 finalists. One of those schools isn't known for making high school recruits bonus babies. So USC's new defensive staff and Matt Entz, they have a chance to make a huge statement if they can get Noah to commit, even if he plans to take trips to Oregon and Texas A&M coming up. So huge weekend. This is one of those guys you want to keep home. You don't want to lose him to the bag. I'm not saying that's what he's all about, but if a lot of the players on the defensive side of the ball, they're in the wait and see mode. They got to see it. And so while Matt Entz is a great coach, Antonlynn's coming up. He's the new defensive coordinator. You got Eric Henderson, Doug Belk. Right now on paper, it looks good. They want to see it. But again, I would love if you could get Noah to say, hey, you know what? I'm committed. Juju Lewis, he's committed. He's taking trips, but he could actually have an effect on this weekend. Maybe he can convince Andrew Marsh to commit, the wide receiver. I know these guys say one thing one day, but I use the F word around here with regards to recruiting for a reason. It's fluid. Andrew Marsh calling a shot after this weekend, that would probably be enough to bump USC's class into the number 2 spot. A little more fodder for the USC versus LSU battle that'll be happening in September. Look, I'm not sure if USC can generate the same type of commitment bonanza like the one they had when Isaiah Gibson and Justice Terry and Gus Cordova and Hilton Stubbs put their hands over their heart and pledged their allegiance to USC. That happened in March during their unofficial visits. But I'll tell you what, getting 2 guys from this weekend on their official visits, that'd be a nice way to end the weekend. That's the number I'm putting out there. USC gets 2. We'll see what happens. I remember I'm still a big-time Laker fan, but I remember being a big-time Laker fan going to the NBA Finals when Magic Johnson and Big Game James Worthy were doing it at the Great Western Forum. And then later on, doing the same thing when Kobe was doing his thing at Staples Center. Hey, if your team is still alive in the playoffs, then with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. With those all-in prices, they're going to show your total up front. That way, you know you're getting a great price and a great deal before you check out. And you can buy your tickets in seconds. 2 taps, and you'll be on your way to the NBA Finals. Trojan fans, did you get your tickets for the game in Vegas yet? Been talking about it. Don't wait. If you are going to wait, Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. And even an hour after it starts, it's the place to find last-minute tickets. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED like David, ON like Nancy for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching ESPN, Fox Sports on your TV all day long? You're hitting that mute button because you're just tired of all the yelling and screaming? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel, and it's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, and it's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The other day on Locked On USC, I posed 3 questions about the tight ends. I've actually been doing a series on each of the different position groups. The last group on the opposite side of the ball are the guys in the trenches. That's what we're going to talk about now in this segment. So, question number 1 about the offensive lineman. Will the starting 5, will those guys need to stay healthy for the entire year for USC to be successful on offense on that side of the ball? There's actually more than 3 questions regarding USC's 2024 offensive line. However, these are the 3 most pressing questions as far as I'm concerned. So, while the competition is going to continue during the summer, during PRPs, and at least in coach speak theory, through fall camp as well, I think everyone would agree USC staff probably knows who they want starting when USC kicks off the season in Las Vegas. And everyone also knows that the quarterback's best friend is the guy protecting his blind side. Last year, it was Jonah Monheim. Well, Jonah Monheim is going to be your starting center. So you've got redshirt freshman Elijah Page. He's going to be your starting left tackle. You've got redshirt junior Mason Murphy. He's going to be starting at right tackle. Now, in a perfect world where injuries do not happen, Josh Henson can rely on his guys with the most game experience, especially at those tackle spots, right? And that way he doesn't have to pull his ace in the hole card. Most assume that Jonah would slide back outside, if that became necessary. And that way you've got guys like Gino Quinones, as well as kill switch Killian O'Connor, who would probably take over at center. Now, most consider the offensive line's interior as the group's strength. I do. Jonah Monheim has already played 4 different positions on the offensive line, and he's played them all very well. Left tackle, right tackle, both guard positions. So, he should already be considered a NFL first-round draft pick in the upcoming draft in 2025. So why not be the starting center in 2024, right? Show him you can do all 5. You are the official Swiss Army knife of the offensive line. Emmanuel Prignon is going to be your starting left guard. Olani Noah, who started as a true freshman in the first game of the season last year, is going to be your starter at right guard. So the question now is really about the backups. They're young, like really young. And when more help comes from the 2024 recruiting class, it's going to get even younger. Excuse me. So as the group continues to get younger, when more help arrives, and despite what at least ESPN's computers are saying that the USC schedule isn't difficult, I don't think it matters who's playing quarterback for USC. There's plenty of talent at the skill positions. There's just no room for error up front right now. You need that starting 5, which is your most experienced guys. They need to stay healthy. Because when you look at the guys backing up a tackle, specifically, at left tackle, you've got Justin Tauanu, true freshman. behind right tackle Mason Murphy. It's not quite as young. Tobias Raymond's a second-year player. However, he doesn't have a lot of game experience. Very, very little. So that's why you need these starting five to stay healthy throughout the season. Maybe when USC is blowing out LSU and Utah State to start the season, the backups can get some meaningful playing time. So they will be ready when they're called upon. But right now, I think that the biggest question is, where can USC afford to, well, you can't afford to lose anybody. But because Jonah Monheim can play multiple positions, I guess you've got a little bit of latitude, but you don't have a whole lot of leash to use when it comes to that offensive line. Question number 2, is there enough depth? Numbers wise, yes. I think the numbers say you got plenty of guys in the room. But it's more than just having enough numbers. As I was talking about just above, the question is really, is there enough experienced depth? And is there a good balance between the guys who can play on the inside and those who protect against the speed rushers? The roster post-spring camp. Remember, you had a player leave late. Why is the name dropping out of my mind? Anyways, these are the guys who are left. Gino Quinones, Killian O'Connor, Emmanuel Prignon, Mason Murphy, Jonah Monheim. Those are your upperclassmen. The backups, again, Justin Tawanu, left tackle, Mason Murphy's backup, Tobias Raymond. I think this subject is going to come to the surface at some point during the season, just because there's not enough upperclassmen in that offensive line room. So as we head into the summer, the guys who are going to be responsible for protecting the edges, they better have their big boy pants on, because it doesn't look like there's any help coming from the transfer portal anytime soon. As far as my third question. Yeah. Oh, Cooper Lovelace. My God, I don't know why that name just escaped me. He left after spring. So that's why USC only has 11 guys, and they're down one experienced player. So question number 3 is, does USC have enough size up front? Okay. According to Lincoln Riley, it's not an issue anymore. This is what he said after the spring. I do think we're going to have the ability right now to move more people off the ball than we've had in the first 2 years. We've got a little bit more mass and a little bit more girth with us. We're starting to look more like the offensive line at USC, what it ought to look like. I think that's very exciting. Close quote. Mark Twain who's a great writer, he once penned, "It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog." I have a feeling that Twain probably never played football, let alone college football, at the FBS level. Size matters in football, especially when you're playing in the trenches. Sorry, Mark, it matters. Now, even though the style of play varies from conference to conference, when it comes to the offensive linemen, you want guys who are big. You want guys who are strong, and guys who play with that bully attitude. Doesn't matter, what conference you play on, or play in, I should say, excuse me. But you also, you want your offensive linemen, you want guys who are flexible, guys who are able to bend, kind of, when those speed rushers are coming, those big, strong defensive linemen, you need guys who can absorb energy, do whatever is necessary to protect the quarterback. Those guys have bad intentions who are rushing at you. So, yeah, you want big, strong, but you also want versatile, flexible, nimble guys who could be ballet stars. But if Coach Riley's trained eyes are correct, you know what? He might be right. There's probably enough size in that room I mean, even the freshmen that have showed up, like Justin, he's 6'6", and when you look at him, he looks like he's well over 310 pounds. And I've shown you the pictures, I've shown you the videos throughout spring. When you see these guys, they look the part. So yeah, size isn't an issue. Experience is an issue. All right. I thought it would be cool to answer some of my viewers, listeners' questions, viewer mail. And the reason I'm going to do it is I got a message this morning from one of my everydayers. And it said, I look forward to the show every day. I always download it so I have something to listen to on my lunch break. Is there no show today? Okay, well, first of all, I panicked. And I ran back to the computer. I was like, oh, good God, make sure I have all the settings set up. It was there. The show was there. So shout out to my everydayer, Adrian Hobbs. Hope you're enjoying your lunch. And this episode, and I also hope this episode showed up on your timeline. Remember, hit that bell notification button if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're not a subscriber yet, become one. Click that red subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. All this will continue to help the show grow. So shout out to Adrian Hobbs. Enjoy your lunch. Now, I want to answer some of my viewer questions. If you have some, hit me up. Throw them down there. YouTube. Follow me on Twitter. Throw me a question. I will answer them here. Promise you. First question is from Ernesto Galvan. He said, what's more important, a 1,000-yard running back plus or a tight end gaining 700 yards? And he was using the Ross Bowers comparison from Georgia. It's a really good question. Why not both? I don't see why you can't have both. I think that 700 yards, that means you're making your tight end a feature, one of your key guys. I don't know if Lincoln Riley's going to feature the tight end like that. The reason why Georgia features the tight end like that, and I'll say it again, they have not had a wide receiver crack the 1,000-yard barrier since 2002. Yeah, that's crazy. Maybe CJ Wiley. I don't know. If you're listening, if you're watching, the tight end, they like to use it at Georgia. We want to use it at USC, but we will highlight the wide receiver. So to answer your question, Ernesto, I think it would be more important to get that running back, that 1,000 yards, kind of reestablish that tailback you thing. And if you can get a tight end to get anywhere from 450, 500 yards, that would be significant. Next question. This one's from Michael Pittman. And it's actually, he's not the first one. I've actually had this question come up a few times. Others, they're asking about, hey, when is Locked On USC gear going to be available? Merchandise. We want it. Hey, the legal folks at Locked On with the network, they've heard the request. They're working behind the scenes. I'll keep you all updated. Remember, I work for the Locked On network. Legal Eagles. They got to make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, no trademarks are being infringed upon. So yeah, I think if anything, the first thing we'll see, maybe some dedicated colors per site, and then we'll work on, USC and Trojan logos, stuff like that. So stay tuned. It'll happen. This one comes from Haboob Productions. Okay. I wonder if this person lives in Arizona. Does anybody know what a Haboob is? Haboob. And Haboob is a dust storm. They only happen in two places in the world. One of them is the Sahara Desert. The other, Arizona. If you've ever seen a wall of sand, dust coming at you, it's impressive. Really impressive to see. Scary as hell, but impressive. Anyways, Haboob Productions asked, I like Miller as a quarterback. However, how do you think USC will do this season being in an entirely different conference division? I'm rather new to college, so I have no idea how everything works. Welcome aboard, and thanks for your question. Let me know. Are you in Arizona or are you from the Middle East? Anyways, I want to first, again, thanks for becoming an everyday listener. I think USC's transition to the big conference is going to be interesting. I've talked about this before. People talk about recruiting for, the type of, for the conference you play on, that you play in. I want to remind people when Pete Carroll or John McKay or John Robinson, when they were putting together their USC rosters, they were recruiting guys to be Trojans, to play in the Pac-8, the Pac-10, the Pac-12. When USC has talent, it translates across all boundaries, all state lines. It doesn't matter. What matters is for USC is just getting the guys that they should be getting. And it's all about the defense looking respectable. Offense is going to travel. They're going to be just fine. So to answer your question, Haboob, love the name. I think USC will be fine. Lincoln Riley addressed it. You heard me read the quote. They wanted to get bigger, a little more size in the trenches on the offensive line. So yeah, there's a little bit of nuance involved, I guess, but USC will be just fine. I know you're new to college, but if you go back, hit up YouTube, look at USC, type in these words, USC football Pete Carroll highlights, and you're going to just see USC taking everybody's milk money. Auburn, Arkansas from the SEC, Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa from the big conference. USC has a history, a lot of tradition. They just need to kind of get back to that. They've had some down years. Lincoln Riley and his coaching staff is trying to get USC back to where they should be. Next one's from James Clampett. What about recruiting some elite junior college players? Guys with 3 years to play, they have 3 years to play too. All I hear is recruiting high school players and transfer portal players for 1 year. How many USC players on USC's roster come from a junior college that are on scholarship? I've actually talked about this before as well, but I will, explain it again. It's hard to get into USC from a junior college. The units, the credits, they have to be transferable. Not all of them are. And USC is one of those schools that kind of they like to protect the value of their diploma. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds about this, but they've asked guys in the past to do things that are just a little bit weird. Guys who want to transfer to USC from other schools that aren't necessarily a junior college, and they kind of make them jump through some hoops. So again, I've explained before, getting into USC from a junior college, it's difficult. Just the way it is. I'm not saying it's not going to happen again in the future, but they make things a little challenging. This question comes from Samsung, who, by the way, he listens to the show in Cambodia. That's a long ways away from the United States. Fight on, Samsung. By the way, I have, just because he's listening in Cambodia, one of my favorite songs in the entire world, Holiday in Cambodia from the Dead Kennedys. Look it up. He says, Mark, I got to ask you, when did USC change from tailback U to wide receiver U? Here's my quick, short answer. I blame every running back at USC since Reggie Bush and Lindale White. Look, the real reason is the game has changed. The Pac-12, it just became a little bit more wide open. Offenses across the country became a little bit more wide open. And USC just started to go with their personnel strength. And it just happened to be at wide receiver, not at running back. Some of it's philosophical. But again, a lot of it had to do with the personnel, and much of that had to do with the offensive line personnel. So if you want, have a strong running game, obviously you want to have great runners. You got to give them the ball. but you also have to have an offensive line that's capable of blasting open holes. Student body right, student body left, that needs to become part of the everyday vocabulary again. It's been a while. Let's make it happen again. I'm going to make Locked on USC happen again tomorrow with another episode. I'll have my Friday rant. Might have some recruiting news. I'll have something to talk about. That's why you're going to make Locked on USC your first listen every day, 5 times a week. All right. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.